Start recording. All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us. We're going to kick it off, and the whole point tonight is we're going to go over the three proposals that will be presented at the National Council session. I think as we were introducing each other, we all are aware of what the National Council session is. It's basically, in our council, we have an annual meeting. We meet once a year. In Girl Scouts, the meeting is every 3 years. And that 3-year period is called a triennium. And the meeting that's held every 3 years is called the National Council session. And that's the opportunity for delegates from across the whole United States to discuss, debate, and vote on proposed amendments to our governing documents. It will be in Washington, D.C. this summer. And oh my gosh, I should be doing a countdown. We're getting pretty close, just over a month away. And have been preparing for this for a while. Almost 2 years ago, our council delegates were voted in by the Girl Scouts of Eastern South Carolina voting body. And we have 3 voting delegates who are Courtney Cavatoni, our board chair, who is with us tonight. Lexi McInturf, who's a girl delegate. I don't know who else is joining us, so I can't really see that. We've got some more people. Let's see. And Amy is back on. Lauren, are you and Lexi together?
No, it's just me. She won't be able to join us tonight. There was a change of plans.
No worries. Thank you for sharing on your video. So our voting delegates are Courtney Cavatoni, our board chair, Lexi McInturf, a girl delegate, and Amy Collin from Bluffton. I see Amy is back on. Amy, I don't see can you verify that you're with us?
Yes, I can see me, so I'm on here.
Oh, you're in front of your computer now. Perfect.
Yes.
And our alternates, and these are in order, if any of the 3 voting delegates, Courtney, Lexi, or Amy, are unable to vote for whatever reason, then in order, the replacements would be Lauren Lucas, who is here with us, and then me, and then third, Cliff McBride, who was our most recent board chair of Eastern South Carolina. Many of y'all know him, but he also is serving on a governance committee to look at nationally. He's serving on a national committee to look at governance across all of GSUSA. So he's, very well versed in all of this as well. So let's dive into it. The 3 proposals that we're going to be talking about tonight and getting feedback from you are one concerning solicitation of funds for earning higher awards. Another one is about membership dues, and it says procedures for registration, but I don't know that it's really that. It's about how much can the national board increase dues in any given triennium, 3-year period. And the third one has to do with licensed products for sale during the cookie or fall product program. So that's very brief. Now, I will also tell you that our delegates do not vote as a block for Girl Scouts of Eastern South Carolina. Each delegate votes their own conscience, their own thoughts, but it's highly based on feedback from all of our members. And we've been talking for a long time with our membership to get feedback. So you'll hear from them. In fact, I'm going to have them present the proposals. And then are y'all ready to dive in? Is everybody good? Okay. So the first one is the highest award solicitation of contributions proposal. I'm going to kick it off by showing you very briefly what it looks like in the actual documents. And all of these documents, by the way, are on our website under the governance page. In fact, you'll see even more. It gives you the full, 8 pages on each one of these proposals. So if you want to do that deep dive, they're on our website now. But this presentation is kind of condensed in a little bit for purposes of discussion. So this proposal, here's the actual verbiage around it. But we don't really spend a whole lot of time on that. What it does is it's striking out Girl Scout seniors and ambassadors, and it's saying girl members can solicit for bronze, silver, and gold award. So I think what makes sense is to go to current state. And Lauren, would you mind leading the discussion on this for us?
Not at all.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
so
Putting the delegates on the spot.
so the current way that it works is seniors and ambassadors may fundraise like GoFundMe's, individual fundraisers to support their gold awards, excuse me, provided that they have secured permission from their council. Each council has different fundraising rules, so this is just a general guideline that girls are allowed to fundraise, and then the council set up their own guidelines and procedures on how seniors and ambassadors can fundraise towards their gold award. Then the proposal is that the change will be that girls earning their bronze and silver would be allowed to fundraise or seek donations with approval from their council. According to Girl Scouts of Eastern Pennsylvania, they are the ones that are proposing this. The way the standard is now is that the girls that are seeking their bronze and silver run into challenges with money and support. So allowing this change will increase the equity and accessibility for all higher awards by removing financial barriers. It will create consistent national standards that apply to all councils. And the idea is that it will benefit the movement, resulting in more higher awards earned, and it may lead to older girl retention, and it will reinforce life skills. The national board recommendation is that they are neutral. They have heard arguments on both sides of it, but they do not feel like they have enough evidence to show that there are real barriers for the younger girls. So they are remaining neutral on this proposal. I think I
Right. So
hit all
what
of
we
that.
do
Yeah.
now, thank you, Lauren.
No problem.
What we typically do now is just kind of open it up for discussion. What do y'all think about this? Have you led girls through any of your girls through any of the higher awards? And how do you think, what are your thoughts on this?
So we're starting this year because we are having some girls that are bridging over to that level right now. But I guess I've like for me, not being a Girl Scout leader, just looking on the outside in, I would say, well, what is the data showing that basically where the retention level is being held at? Or is the retention numbers high that we can support that, or is it low that we want the girls to to retain in? I was putting my Girl Scout hat on. I would say that I think that's a great idea because then it means you can have another girl that say, I want to recruit another girl into this because yes, I can get money or we can fundraise and this is how much money I can earn. And these are the skills I can use. Maybe I can use that information, take it with me to maybe to college or maybe start my own troop up because I know that that opportunity was available to me when I was at this level.
Yeah. Yeah. And our retention rate, it's a good question. I have lots of data on retention by level even, but I'm not going to be too difficult and timely to pull it up now. But the typical higher retention rates are at that middle school level. That's when we lose the most girls. That's probably resonates with y'all too, when they've got more activities to pursue and it's not as cool. They're concerned about it being cool, and that's our highest drop-off rate.
So my biggest question that I always ask about that is money really the reason that we're seeing that big drop off in girls at that age? Or is it, like you said, Diane, there are so many opportunities. I know Lexi is older now, but when her troop was at that transition stage, we had 12 juniors and 4 continued on into cadets. And it wasn't because they didn't want to do the program. It was just that they had other things that they wanted to focus on and couldn't fit it into their schedule, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
I think
my question is,
yeah.
does the money really factor in to the retention, or like
Well, I
I
think there's a lot of factors. I think Dee's point is that if you're a, middle school girl, you're going and you have the opportunity to have a more robust award or project because you can fundraise and you're learning fundraising skills, maybe that's another reason to keep you more involved. Yeah.
I always go back to on the bronze award. We've had this conversation about at the bronze award level, it is truly your troop leader who is guiding and creating the fundraising opportunities outside of cookie sales. And so my question is in this space, if you're approved for girls or troops to raise funds specifically for the bronze award, how is that different than any other fundraiser that they're already having as a troop? And how do you differentiate between those two? Because surely to ask for more paperwork from our troop leaders from a troop finance report is also not super helpful when you have fourth and fifth graders. And so I could see where allowing for bronze awards recipients to solicit fundraising opportunities at that age level would not be, it would be prohibitive for a troop leader.
Yeah.
So that would go back into maybe that would have to go back and maybe modifying or amended I guess, because I was reading that financial governance today, as a matter of fact. It would have to go back and maybe change, go back and changing that in there, maybe put an exception for that. And then if we know that if this money is for the girls, as a troop leader, I mean, to me, what I would do is I would probably put that money away. So this is a scholarship that you would earn if you continue all the way up until you graduate as a senior. Say you raise $2,000 or whatever that looks like. This is your scholarship money for you to use whatever. If you want to go on to college, or if you want to use it for something else, that money is reserved there for you. It won't be touched by any of the troops, by the troop leaders going into their operating budget.
D, think
Go ahead.
I think if I'm understanding you correctly, this isn't money that goes directly to the girls. This is money that goes to the girls for their very specific bronze, silver, and gold award.
Yes.
This money that is fundraised cannot be used for anything but those categories.
That's
So like
correct.
right now, if a girl earns her gold award and she chooses to do a fundraiser for it, I can actually give you a perfect example. One of the girls that I've helped work and earn her gold award did a garden for her community. And they did a fundraiser and they sold, if I remember correctly, they sold like seed packets for people to use at their homes and have access to it. All of that money from the seed packets had to go back to their project.
Right.
So that would be the same thing for these. If you fundraise at the bronze level and the silver level, that money has to go back towards that bronze and that silver award.
So
Well,
in
That's
the
correct.
then
ones, okay,
my
go ahead. I'm
question
sorry.
would be then, what if you do over fundraise? Is there going to be, I mean, that's a wonderful problem to have, but if you have raised more than the project actually costs, what kind of, uh, how would troops handle that? I have to say that off the bat, I think that this is a great opportunity. I don't
Yeah.
entirely understand why it would be okay at the gold, but not at the bronze or the silver. So I see some issue like equitability. But logistically speaking, if you're raising funds specifically for this project and then the project comes in under budget, what happens to those extra funds at that point?
So thank you, Beatrice, for that question. And there would have to, as a council, we would have to agree to and build in procedures for what to do with the extra funds because they have to go towards that cause or that project. It's a lot easier to do it as a Gold Award project because the Gold Award project has to be sustainable. So it's going to continue to carry on. So you can, you can distribute the funds to the entity that's going to keep the project alive. It's a little bit easier at gold award, but in bronze and silver, we would have to figure that out. But Lauren is exactly correct. It couldn't go to the girl. It can't go to the troop. It's got to go to the project that was developed. So it could be additional work for the bronze award troop or girl or silver award troop or girl to expand or do something more with the project to be able to spend the remaining funds.
It gets a little, oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, no,
Sorry.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to say it gets a little murky right now because there are no guidelines for that. There
Yeah,
are guidelines for the gold award, and the gold award guidelines, like Diane said, specifically say that the money has to be used in conjunction with something with the project.
right.
So the girl who's doing the gold award project, excuse me, she can designate and say like, okay, I fundraised say $1,000 and I only needed 800, so I'm gonna put $200 into using with that garden example, making sure that they have enough, I don't know, Miracle Grow or something related to the project. But
Yeah,
the other part that becomes I guess you can say a little murky at the silver and the bronze level is you have the opportunity to work as troops or in smaller groups.
right.
So then you're having multiple projects and multiple fundraisers, and each one would have to be separate. Like you couldn't come in and say, oh, these three girls are doing a fundraiser for a bronze award. These three are doing a fundraiser for a bronze award. And these three, we're going to do one big fundraiser because you have to show specifically where the money came in and where the
Yeah,
money went out. So that's why Diane's saying like we would have to sit down as a council and
and
figure
figure
that
out
part
what's
out because it is a little murky right now because it hasn't
right,
passed. Now,
right.
I can tell you from a lot of the calls that we've been sitting on, a lot of the calls on the national level, a lot of people are suggesting that they take the bronze out of this and allow it for silver and gold.
We'll see where we go. It's interesting because at the high level view, the concept of not having barriers for girls and they have big goals and they want to do big things and fundraising for, I mean, having funds to do a project can be a barrier, right? So the high level goal, I think, is a great one to give the girls more skills, learning fund development skills, and not creating any barriers for big goals that they have. It comes down to the how do we manage it, and as a council we can work together, and we have a lot of smart people in this council, and when we come up with procedures like this, we get, it's not just staff, it's staff and volunteers. We come together and talk about what's the best way to do for our girls. So we could figure it out, I'm sure.
Well, let me know because I like to
I think
volunteer for that. Hey.
All right, Dee, I've got
Yeah.
your name written down.
Yes. Okay.
we'll make note of that.
Yes.
The other thing that I think is important too is this doesn't require our bronze and silver girl candidates to fundraise. It simply allows them the possibility of fundraising. So it's not saying if you choose to do a silver or bronze project that you have to fundraise. It just opens the door to allow it.
Yeah, good point.
Like the discussion. Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of discussion on this, I think, in DC.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a good one. Linda, you and I can sit back there and we can follow along with with Lauren. Any other comments on this that you want to share? Anybody wants to share or questions to ask? All right. Thank you, Lauren, for leading us through the first proposal. We are off and running. Okay, the next one, Amy knows I'm gonna put her on the spot for it, right? And I will let you kick it off, Amy, and you just tell me when to flip the slides.
All right. So proposal number 2 is a change to the restrictions on whether or not the National Council, when they can raise our registration dues. So Next
Here.
slide, please.
Mhm.
So currently what happens is the National Board of Directors must have approval from the National Council, which is all of our delegates, whenever a planned dues increase. Right now, it is a total of 15%, nope, 25%.
Mhm.
And the proposal from Greater Chicago and Northwest Indiana is they'd like to reduce that to 15%. So in 1 3-year triennium. And so what happened
So
a
here's
year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when our membership dues went up the last time from $25 to 45 and then now 65 for next year, was National Council called a special council where they brought everybody together in order to approve the last increase because it exceeded the 25%. So that's what this says is current state. They can't do it for more than 25% without having an extra national council session. So not our regular ones that are coming up.
Mhm.
Next slide, Diane. So here's the argument from the Girl Scouts of Greater Chicago and Northwest Indiana is that in 2020, when this proposal was approved the first time, where a percentage constraint was placed on the National Council in regards to increasing membership dues, at that time, it was 25% of $25. Now it will be 25% of $65 going into the next membership year. So their argument is that amending it from 25 to 15 still allows the national board leeway to keep up with inflation, but still reinforcing the importance that national council should be making a decision in collaboration with our national delegates. So next slide. However, the national board opposes this proposal, and the reasons are their argument is that guardrails are already in place, right? That's what we agreed on in 2020 was they agreed to we will have a special council session if they need to increase it more than 25%. They also, it is very expensive to have an additional special NCS session, which it says on here, the special 57th session is what happened. So they are committed to engaging a robust delegate engagement to having an increase to our membership dues. However, again, they propose it and they feel like it sets a threshold as a percentage. Well, when you set a threshold as a percentage, it does allow them to increase it proportionally over time. So that's the other side of it. So I think the next slide tells us.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's discussion.
That's it. So it has to do with the benefits of, and there are definitely two sides to this, and we are hearing them on the calls, which are some people view it as, again, that's a big increase, and we've already just gone through two big increases, and how does it affect our membership? But yet, we all know that inflation continues to rise, everything, the cost of living. And so the cost to provide Girl Scouts to our girls continues to rise also, which includes the staff and personnel at a national level that create all of our programs. So I would love to hear from Beatrice, Dee, and Linda.
Yep.
What do you think are the benefits of this? And then what do you think some of the challenges are if we leave it at 25%?
If we were living 20 years ago when inflation was really low, if it was like 2%, then I could see it being raised to $65. But in the currency that we live in now, retention is the biggest thing. We have girls that, okay, yeah, if we're going to come back or not. I mean, I have one girl loves coming to Girl Scout, but her mom and dad have to decide if they're going to eat food, pay the bills, or pay that $65, because she didn't participate in cookie sales. And like I
Mhm.
would love to, dig in my deep pocket and say, hey, I will go ahead and pay for your girl, but then if I pay for one, I got to pay for the other, and I'm in the same situation as the next person. So it's hard, and that's where I think where our retention lies into, because we can't sustain girls who want to be Girl Scouts because one, the parents is basically responsible for that $65. I mean, I
Right.
love the good, the Her Together initiative that we had, because that did help some of the girls too, even though the membership dues was a little bit low. But still, it's still too high for some parents, especially where I live. I live in Berkeley County, and I mean the rural part of Berkeley County, so a lot of people are below middle class. So I mean, I look at other people who live in the rural areas that are probably worse off than I am, or the county I live in might be worse off. I'm sure that there's enthusiasm for the girls to join, but I mean, what am I going to do? Pay for gas or go to Girl Scouts?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, I just want
Linda?
to say how
Oh,
much, this is B, I'm sorry, B
I'm sorry.
Burton. I just want to say how much I agree with everything Dee has just said. I am coming from, again, East Cooper, Mount Pleasant, like we're a pretty flush community, but I do worry about it being a barrier for families, and especially around here with the assumption that, oh, Mount Pleasant parents can just pay. And that's not true for a lot of the families, even in this community, let alone across, thinking about some of the more rural communities. So I definitely agree with what Dee said about not just retention, but also it being a barrier for new members to be able to come in, if that price of admission is so high. And I love what Diane was able to do this year with the cookies, paying for next year's membership. I think that that was fantastic. Real financing mojo, but there's only so much that I know you're going to be able to do to help keep it accessible for our families. So yeah, I also have serious concerns, even as I do understand like everything is getting more expensive. It makes sense that Girl Scouts also gets more expensive, except it is meant to be something that is accessible at a wider community level. And at the rate it's going, it's not going to be that.
As an old timer, I sat through a national council session where we debated a membership raise of, I don't know, $3 or $4. And it went on for hours and hours. And then a couple of years ago, when they just kind of raised the dues without any discussion, I remember then sitting through, I think maybe it was Columbus, maybe Diane, you can help me that, where they pulled it back and said, no, the national board can't raise dues without any buy-in from the national council delegates. So, so I'm coming from this from a old school way, but I just wonder, and Diane, and you may have the statistics with the raise, and did we maintain enough? Did the going to the $45, did that extra money offset members that we lost because the price went up?
Oh, nationally, that's a good point. So this is the year that we went to 45, right? I mean, because 65 is starting October 1. Right. Everything we just did through the cookie program starts next October 1. Currently, this year, national membership is down, when I looked this morning, 9.5% year over year. So that's a pretty big drop going to 45. I haven't done the math on what does that mean between 25, because all of that goes to GSUSA, right? So that's $20 less per girl at 9.5% less membership. Now, when we go to 65, I don't know. We don't know what the impact is going to be on that. Does that kind of answers your question, Linda?
Yeah, right? Yeah. You know, because anytime a product goes up in price, they figure you're going to have less customers, but it's supposed to balance out, and I just don't know that it does.
Right. So right now, going up $20, we've lost 9.5% membership. So and that's about a million, close to roughly 1 million girls. So
now, Diane, are all of those 9%, is that just related to the $20 raise?
No,
or is that
overall? That is girl membership as of June, what is today? 11th, 10th, June 10th versus girl membership June 10th of a year ago.
So we don't necessarily know that 9% loss is all directly related to that.
No, the reasons
raise.
are, there's a lot of reasons to it, but a $20 increase is one of those reasons. Yes.
Oh, well, I definitely agree. I was
Yes.
just trying to
Yes. No.
wrap
Yeah.
my head
I
around
understand
it.
your question. Yeah. Yeah.
I also think one of the things that's kind of behind the reason this proposal is being made is, and I wasn't involved in that special session, but at the time, National wanted to actually increase the dues to $85 per girl. And so I think there's still some lingering concern that National's going to want to raise dues again, relatively significantly. And, a lot of councils like us, we have rural areas like, y'all were saying, and it's a big deal. So I think that whole special session has left some lingering concerns, trust issues with National.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that fair, Diane?
I think for sure there is that feeling. Yes. Yes.
I have some really mixed feelings about this proposal because in my day job, I work for a food recovery organization. So we feed people. So when I look at basic needs and we're talking about what Dee and Beatrice are talking about, and I think when it comes down to where does Girl Scouts fits in the hierarchy of what a family has to provide, Girl Scouts becomes a luxury item, which makes me sad because I have four daughters who have been through Girl Scouts. And obviously, I'm here as a volunteer because I believe in the impact of Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is I've also worked for a council and I do know how expensive it is to provide and deliver Girl Scouts. And I have concerns about the future of Girl Scouts and the sustainability of our councils and our national office if they do not bring in more revenue. And so to the point where we're talking about girls versus renewal versus retention versus new members, I don't know because I'm not on the inside anymore that councils are receiving any relief because the membership dues have gone up. But what I do know is that at the national office, they have sold properties, reduced staff, like they are trying really, really hard. What I would like for my granddaughters and my great granddaughters is Girl Scouts to still be a viable option. And so in that case, I feel like maybe it is more money. I mean, we paid more money for baseball, we paid more money for dance, and we paid more money when we could, but we had the luxury of being able to do that for four daughters. And not every family does, and I am very aware of that in the three counties that I serve. So I have both sides of that because I really would like for Girl Scouts to be here for another 100 years.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Miss Amy. I was a brownie, and I wanted before we had I was in the military, so my dad, I didn't know anybody. I was shy and I didn't have friends. So my parents thought it was a good idea for me to become a brownie, and I did that all up until I was a cadet. But then we moved and things happened, and they didn't have they didn't have a Girl Scout here, or at least I might didn't really look for one. But I have my little cousin. She's a daisy. She's getting ready to bridge. And I'm trying to continue that on with her. But with everything going up nowadays, it seems like it's more. I mean, I know it's a business at the end of the day, but we still want the girls to be excited about becoming, to come to Girl Scouts. I mean, like I said, I love doing what I do, and if any parent needs help, yeah, I mean, yeah, if I can afford it, yeah, I'm gonna dig in my pocket to make sure that girl can go do those programs. It shouldn't have to be that way. It shouldn't have to be a toss up like we're going to raise dues or not. It should be what do the girls want at the end of the day?
Yeah.
If we could put ourselves in their shoes. What do they want at the end of the day? So they can have a great time without having raising the money that's going to hurt financially to some of the parents who are struggling right now in this economy.
This is really a tough one because I agree with you, Amy. The national organization, so all of these dues go to GSUSA. None of the membership dues stay at the local council. But GSUSA really has got, in the last couple of years, so many more initiatives to elevate all of Girl Scouts everywhere. We've got the Daisy Experience boxes, the Brownie Experience boxes. So that's been, at no cost to councils. There's also a new branding campaign that's come out, brand positioning about find the power within her, that really is resonating very well. And if we can, GSUSA needs those resources to provide this national exposure. I often say, I have two boys and thousands of girls, but if I were a mom of girls and I knew what this organization did for girls, I'd be beating down the doors to get my girl in Girl Scouts. I'd do anything to get her in Girl Scouts, right? People still don't understand our value. They still, unless you're in it and you see what happens, and we all see it all the time, you don't really understand it, and people don't put that value on it. So part of this increase in dues allows our parent who is leaner and trying to cut expenses, but it allows them to do national exposure and other things that support us all. So I really believe they are using their resources better in the last several years than I've seen them use. And that's positive. And in the meantime, we as a council need to get creative with our financing, like through the cookie program or the Together initiative. And through the cookie program, we'll continue next year. We're very fortunate that we're financially capable to do that. And if you ever have girls who need assistance, we can help. Reach out to your volunteer specialists, and we'll make that happen. Because we're in a good position to do that. We have to stay here, and we have to stay relevant for our girls. We're just way too important to let it go.
I'm not disagreeing with you there.
Mhm.
It's just like I said, it's just hard. It's very hard. And I know I I love the membership boxes. We got those because that really helped on our budget. I mean, I started a new troop. We had $100, and between me and
Yeah,
my co-leader, we basically dug in our pockets to make sure that the girls had what they needed, you know.
yeah.
And me personally, I will still continue to do that if I'm financially able to do so. But it's just that, like you said, I don't think some of the parents understand who are maybe something we have to do as a council, maybe show the community this is what Girl Scouts all about.
This is the difference we make. Yep, yep. And you see it in our girls all the time, all the time. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I kind of agree with Amy. It's both ways for me.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the problem I have is the national board didn't use the 25% they could have used, which got us into the big problem in 2020. Had they gone through and raised dues along like they could have, we probably would have had the big increase. But the lawyer in me goes, 25% of $65 is $15 over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
15% is $9 basically. So you're talking about $6 difference over a 3 year period. So if you cut it to brass tacks, that $6 over 3 years is the difference between the two percentages, roughly.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it that way, does it really make a whole lot of difference, even to our less economically able girls? Is $6 by the national board going to make that much difference over a 3 year period? And I have no clue because the national board has not really used that percentage probably the way they should have previously to stop us having such a big increase 3 years ago.
I like your point, Cliff. It'd be nice if they were transparent enough to show that at the even breaking it down to the council level. So that way, if I'm asking as a troop leader, hey, 'cause for instance, my mom asked about what is this money going? Like we raised almost $30,000 in cookie sales for our first year. 17,000 of that went back to the troop. At least we can see it at the council level, so I can pull it up. I can see that, but we
Mm-hmm.
can't see. If you go to the national website, there's nothing out there to show you what they're actually breaking it down to. The financial report. I mean, I have a business degree, and I use that all the time. Like, okay, my financial report. If anyone wants to see it, I want to see transparency. So I want to see where the money's actually going out to. Yeah, you're setting up these boxes, but break it down even further. Who are you contracting to use these experiences boxes to go into? Why do you have to raise it up this much? Is there something else where you can cut the cost that's considered and that's redundant or repetitive and use it for something else? So we can still, so money doesn't have to, that we can still maintain that threshold where parents can still afford it, especially living in rural communities where $6 may be sustainable for them and their household versus jumping up to like $30, $40 extra. Now I got to pay out of my pocket every, for that 1 year for my Girl Scout to be a Girl Scout because there's all these great things that are happening, but I can't afford $65 right now. is the difference. I like to see that as a big picture. So that way, if
Yeah.
somebody asks a question, I could come to Diane and you could say, hey, this is what it looks like from the national level.
Yeah. Transparency is so important to
It
trust
is.
and
Yeah,
and bringing people along. It's so important.
it
I
is.
get the problem I have is people are looking at this with a 45 and 65. It's 25% versus 15%, which is basically $15 or $9.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with 45, 65, 85, or 100. It's 25%, which is roughly $15 out of 60, or 15%, which is $9.
Mhm.
So it's $6 difference over a 3-year period. It
Well,
has
and
nothing to do with the 65. It has nothing to do with the 45 to
yeah,
65 to 85 to 110, whatever the dues end up being. Those types of increases would have to be done by the national delegates. The national board couldn't do it because they're limited to that $15 over the next 3 years.
right.
And I think people are getting mixed
It
up
doesn't
in.
sound like much, Cliff. We keep hearing from our members though. So if it's 15% of $65, that's $9.75 over 3 years. But if they do it in the first year, that's $9.75 per girl for 3 years. If that girl has 3 girls in her family, then it just multiplies depending on how many girls you have and over each per year for 3 years, and then it goes up from there. It's our members continue to tell us, like they did a year and a half ago going into the last session, the special session, that it makes a difference. They're saying exactly what Dee is saying. In our community, this does make a difference, and it does become a decision maker whether I can continue or not in this organization.
So I have a question, and I might be a little bit off topic here,
Yeah,
but
okay,
hang with
Lauren.
me for a second.
Sure.
Because in 1917, when we started the cookie program, the
Oh,
cookie program was funded to help troops and girls be self-sustaining.
mm-hmm.
So I never want to sound like I'm being ugly, but we have all these troops. Where's the cookie money going that $9 over 3 years is going to be that detrimental?
A lot of our troops use the cookie money already to refund their girls' memberships. A lot of them do, or at least partially. And that is why we decided to build it in at the $50 box this past year.
Like I said, I'm not trying to tell a troop how to use their cookie
Yeah.
money, but it seems to me that there's such a big debate about this 2 price points, like Cliff was saying.
Mhm.
If we're bringing in, I don't know how much money troops bring in because I know every troop is different, but if a troop brings in all this money for their functions, maybe that $9 should be factored in there somewhere. That's the whole point of this cookie program, is to make us as self-sufficient as possible, to teach children skills. We like every person on this call is an adult. Every
Mhm.
one of us has bills that we have to pay. Now, I guarantee you that we all have things we want to do, but we understand that, we have responsibilities. Isn't membership a responsibility if we are part of the program? It becomes kind of like the girls' bills. So I'm kind of with Cliff on this. I don't see the big deal as the big picture, I guess is what I'm getting at. I understand the huge jump right now. That first jump, yes, that was a kick. But $9 is not a lot, especially when you see troops going to Disney World, and I don't even know where troops go anymore. But my point is it seems kind of
What about it
counterintuitive to
as
complain.
a bar for entry, though? Is there going to, like, for somebody who is signing up for their first year,
Mhm.
they don't know, that it's just gone up. They just know what it is now, but it's before they've had their first cookie sales, and those cookie sales would help fund their next year's membership. Like, would there be something Or is there a program other than like going directly to our council and asking for assistance, but would there be anything to maybe help first year troops or first year girls before they have a cookie fund to draw from?
Good question. Not from a national perspective. The way to do that now is to work locally with your council. That's a good thought, though. I like that thought of going forward.
I'm just thinking, especially like, you know, I've been around for a while at this point, so I would have an idea if we really had a financial hardship and needed some help with our memberships. I have an idea of what support there is. But if I were coming at this totally new, no idea what I was doing, I never expected to lead a troop, and suddenly I'm a troop leader because that's how you get your girls into the Girl Scouts. I wouldn't know what I wouldn't know what to do. So it's not just the financial burden for a new girl and a new troop, but also there's less knowledge about how all of it works when you first get started. So I'm not just thinking about retention, but I'm thinking about, you know, new daisies or, you know, new juniors or cadets, how to make sure that the program stays accessible to a community.
That
You know,
makes
and
perfect
I
sense.
think y'all are missing my point. I don't like dues going up at all either. But this proposal is a $6 difference over 3 years. That's all we're talking about. I think everybody's upset about the 45 to 65 and how they did all the special stuff. Whether it's $9 or $15 over the next 3 years, to me, is not the issue that this should be. The issue should be, where's the money going and how are we going to raise it, not the 15 versus 25%. You know, that's been my whole issue is that people are keeping talking about the 45 and 65, and the national council wanted, or the national board wanted 85. To me, the issue is basically you're talking $6 difference between 25 and 15%. And to me, that's not what we ought to be talking about. We ought to be talking about some of these other issues. Because in the long run, I don't know that, you know, if things keep going the way they are, 15% is not going to keep up with inflation over the next 3 years. You put money in a CD right now at 5 or 6%, it's not going to be worth what it is when you put it in there, because inflation's going up that much or more over, because that's the other thing, is it's over a triennium, it's over 3 years, not just 1 year. So it's not like they're going up $15 this year, next year, and the year after. And so, you know, to me, this is one of those that if you really not break it down to brass tacks, I don't know that it makes that much difference in the grand scheme of Girl Scouting, whether people can afford it or not, those kinds of things. I really think this is a clapback at the national board for the dues increase. And I don't know that this gets to what they really wanted to get to. Because I agree with y'all. We've got low income individuals. You know, I work for a housing authority now and used to work for legal services, helping poor people with their legal issues. Believe me, I know how low income people are and what they choose to pay money for, and that they don't have extra money. So I understand all that, and I agree with y'all when it comes to that. I guess my biggest thing is this proposal really doesn't address any of that. Now, I think people get bogged down in the big increase from 3 years ago and that it's going up again next year. And this proposal doesn't really solve any of that. That was my point. Not that I think dues ought to go up, because I don't know that the national board will use it. They didn't use it when they had the 25% 6 years ago or 8 years ago to avoid us going to up $25, which is part of the problem. And that's part of the reason that people are so mad at them now doing what they've done is because they didn't go up regularly like they could have. And what I think a lot of people think they should have done is go up gradually. Instead, they waited 10 or 15 years and went up all at once.
Yeah, if they had that transparency in place, like if like every year or every quarter, whatever it looks like, if they had a financial statement saying, "Hey, this is where the money is coming into, and this is how we basically are sending them, how we're spending the money out," then I think that will basically, then I think that could maybe sell some people, or maybe may sell some people to stay in or not. But like you said, Cliff, it went up. Like I said, it dramatically changed from 45. I mean, I remember when we started, it was $35. It went to 45 and then 65, and that's a lot. But I'd like to know, where is the money going into? If you're asking us parents to pay the $65, is going back, not to the, it's not going to council, it's going to the, like you said, GSUSA. I want to see a report every year or every couple of years to see where the money's coming into, where the money is actually going out to. Is money getting allocated to our council to help fund these different programs, or is it all the money raised for cookie funds that's going back to the council for them to do what they need to do to have a sustainable, these programs?
Well, the national delegates get the financial statements.
We get the not to the kind of detail that Dee is talking about. We get the
Yeah.
basic audit, the basic financial statements.
Well, but because the other thing is I don't know that nationwide you could do it transparent, because something you can get in South Carolina for X, you can't get in New York for X or California for X. And so I'm not sure that it would do any good to show much more than what we get.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
I mean,
that's what
and
I'm
I'll
asking
use
to
the
see.
example
That's what
that's
I
going
want
to
to
come up
see.
when they're talking about the privacy stuff.
Just the basic
People
information.
here,
I know
people,
each state is different, but just like to see that, just to see what these membership dues, or if it's going to cover cookies. What just we don't need to see everything, because each state law is different how they govern their finances, which is fine. I just want to see like the basic information, so that way I could take that back and I could talk to the parents and say, hey, this is what the Girl Scout Council is doing X, Y, and Z, and this is where the money is actually being used at the national level, so you can actually see how they tie. Maybe they collate together, maybe they don't collate together. At least I could talk about it. But I don't think we, as troop leaders, I mean, we don't, I don't, as a parent, we don't have that information. I could tell parents what we have in our budget for troops. We have it broken down, like everything that we spend, everything that we get in, and how we spend it. That's transparency. But we don't have that. I mean, yes, the council may have it, but me as a leader, we don't see it.
but I can go through some of it, but like a typical example, the national board talks about computers and fixing the computer networks and all that kind of stuff. Your leaders think of the new leader toolkit. That's what everybody was worried about. And y'all have heard this example before, except for the three of y'all that are on here. Do you know how much of your personal information Girl Scouts has? They have your social security number, they have your age, they have your house address, they have all of your personal information. And a lot of times they've got your bank account or your credit card, because that's how you pay national your dues or those national functions. You know how much it costs to keep that million plus database safe? About the time you get it safe, you've got to update it again. You know how much money that costs? People don't, people think of the digital cookie or the volunteer toolkit. The national board's thinking of, oh crap, if the Russians get a hold of this, how much are they going to charge us to keep this information safe or to keep it from getting out? And so, that's the kind of thing that if you get into all those details and you start talking transparency, you're going to have a whole lot of explanations that, because I was shocked at the computer stuff, because I was thinking digital cookie and, the new leader toolkit was, and then I started thinking about it when they started talking about safety and this other stuff. You know how much it costs a company to keep all that stuff safe? And I hadn't even thought about the Girl Scouts having all that information on me until the national board board treasurer brought it up at one of our delegate meetings. I'm like, ooh, no wonder it takes so much money.
Well, for sure, all on Salesforce. But we do need to keep moving on here. I love our thoughts. I think we've got, we talked about transparency. I'll go back and look at the financial statements and see if they put confidentiality on that. And we'll put what we can on our website for you to take a look at what I'm able to post.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Are y'all ready to move on to the last proposal to keep us moving?
Sure.
All right. Love the conversation, though. Y'all are great. I knew this was going to be a good group to talk about. All right. Courtney is going to be our lead on the last one. So, Courtney, I'll let you kind of take over.
Yes. Okay, so I think this one is a mouthful, so I'm not going to even read the title, but basically
Okay. We'll
this
go
has
to-
to do with cookie sales and fall product sales, and our licensing program. So GSUSA.
You want me to go to the current state?
Yeah, this is going to be the easiest place to look because the actual language is just a mouthful. So
it's cumbersome.
So basically, our national is responsible for managing any of our product licensing regarding the Girl Scout name, trademarks, including cookie names and flavors. Okay, so each year, a national works with other companies and organizations to produce Girl Scout branded products, some of which are food products, some of which are non-food products, using the Girl Scout name. And then specifically on the food products, they are tied to a cookie name and flavor. So for instance, last year, Wendy's had a Thin Mint flavored Frosty. That has to be licensed through national. Similarly, there are some coffee creamer flavors, there are some Pop Tarts, things like that, that we as a national organization license to other organizations to use. National makes approximately $5 million a year from licensing our name and products.
On food products.
On food products, sorry, $5 million on food, just on food products. That licensing process also actually helps our cookie partners, because when, say, Wendy's makes a Thin Mint flavored Frosty, they actually buy the Thin Mints from our two cookie bakers to make those products. Okay, so so right now, national licenses those products all year long. What this proposal wants to do is to prevent national from being able to license those products. It's a little more complicated than that. It wants to prevent the companies from selling those products anytime there is a fall product or a cookie sale program going on. The reality is those programs go on from August to May of every year. So if this proposal were to pass, national would only be able to license products to be sold in June and July of each year. Which would
are we ready for the next page? I think.
Yeah, next page. Okay. So the council that is proposing this feels that the having Girl Scout branded food products in stores, while specifically the biggest concern is cookie sales are going on, is undue competition for the girls selling the cookies. And they would like to prohibit that from happening. Now, so maybe we go to the next slide. Diane. So the national board, and this is not surprising, opposes this proposal because they went out and conducted they hired a third party to go out and conduct independent national research. And they found, interestingly, that people who actually buy Girl Scout licensed products in the stores are actually more likely to buy Girl Scout cookies, not less likely. And furthermore, they actually buy on average more boxes of cookies. So if I'm a person who's going to buy, say, that Thin Mint Pop Tart in the store, it actually brings the name to mind and brings Girl Scout to the forefront. And you think, oh wow, I want to go buy Girl Scout cookies. So the national research actually shows licensing actually helps girls sell more cookies. The national board also feels like, that $5 million a year is a big number. And that's a lot of money that can go to programs. It can go to technology that Cliff was mentioning. It can go to our national branding programs. Sorry, somebody's calling me here. And that those proceeds fund innovation programs, lots of great things for our girls. Another problem with this is just the realities that if we tried to restrict our partners from selling things only in June and July, the partners are likely to say no thanks, because they're not going to go put something out and then have to pull it off the shelves for such a short period of time. And then finally, there's some legal hurdles around this, because if we don't license our products, then from a legal point of view, it's very hard for us to challenge copycats in court. That's a very simple way of saying it. I'm not an attorney, but basically, if we don't license our products, then it makes it much more difficult for us to go after copycats. So, National Board very strongly opposes this and feels it would actually be a threat to the entire cookie program.
Yep.
So, next.
I think the next is let's talk
it's just
about
the questions. Yeah, let's talk about it. So I'd be
like the
interested to
idea.
hear from the girls and others. Just do you feel that our licensed products actually hurt cookie sales?
I guess like it goes back to the transparency again too. Like if the money is going back into Girl Scout GSUSA, or is it coming down to back to council? Is council getting get a cut of that as well for or because you said that they're getting the money from the two cookie bakers, and they're using that to have that. What does that look like
So
for
the
what does that look
answer,
like for
D, is
council?
all of the licensing fees stay at national.
Okay.
What Courtney's point was for the Wendy's Thin Mints, they have to actually put Thin Mints in their Frosties, right? So they have to buy the Thin Mints from the baker, which makes our baker stronger, which is a good thing. We want to keep our bakers healthy and financially stable. But all of that $5 million that stays at the national organization, just like the membership dues do, and the national organization, it helps their overall budget to be able to provide more services for councils. We don't get a piece of the revenue. There's no revenue sharing for licensing.
I guess not me. So not maybe that's the word, maybe revenue sharing, but I guess as far as programming or whatever that looks
but
like
we
for council.
definitely get programming resources, experience boxes, branding, IT support. We get all of that. It's, so GSUSA does provide councils with a lot of resources, but it comes in the form of, programmings and branding and IT support and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. I think it's a good idea. I think we should be more restrictive of that too, so people don't take advantage of that as well. Because if you say Girl Scouts, I guess everybody in their mind like Girl Scout cookies, it's Girl Scout cookies, because it's been around for so long, so people are used to that, saying. And anybody could say that I'm a Girl Scout lead, I'm selling Girl Scout cookies, because what could go wrong? How are you proving that at the end of the day? So I would agree to keep it more restrictive so we don't have copycats like Temu or Sheen or these
So
other
just to clarify on that, this does not address copycats at all. So if this passes, that $5 million of revenue goes away.
Right.
And it does nothing to address copycats. So copycats are a totally different story. So there are people out there that will make a chocolate mint cookie and sell it as not a Girl Scout branded, but a copycat. This does not even remotely address that. So this only addresses our ability as a national organization to legally license and sell products that we agree to and we get the benefit from. So if this passes, all of that money, that $5 million basically goes away.
Okay. No, we need to keep that then. Never mind.
Yeah.
So again, the
I
copycat.
agree.
That's a
And
very good
actually,
question, Dee, because people
no,
get
it's a great
confused with
question. Yeah,
copycat
As
products and officially licensed products. Yeah.
exactly. And
I
if
was
this
going to
passes, then
reiterate.
we would have a harder time going after those
Right.
copycats.
Right.
Well, and to
Gotcha.
reiterate
Okay. Gotcha.
Dee's stance again, I think we've been on the same page a lot during this meeting, Dee. But that I've never had a problem, or even customers have never asked at our booths about the official Mount. Excuse me, Georgie. Excuse me. Mint Thin Mints. I'm sorry. Nobody's ever asked about the official Thin Mint coffee creamer or Frosties. They always bring up like the Keebler knockoffs. So I
Right.
think it's actually
Right.
really interesting to get this perspective about that licensing.
Mhm.
Right.
Although I have been able to say again that our cookies, we've been able to keep the costs down. Again, thank you, Diane, so that
Yay.
even we're competitive even with the knockoffs. Like you get the original Thin Mints
Yes.
for the comparable price as the Keebler. So
Yes.
but yeah, I think that it sounds like this official licensing is only a boon to the Girl Scouts. So I agree. Let's keep that going
I
as
will
much as
tell
we
you
can.
the other thing GSUSA has done very, very well with their licensed products. And I saw this the other day. They just came out with some sort of syrup flavor. I don't know what kind of syrup it is. I don't know what you'd put syrup in, like a drink or, not a drink, like a coffee or something. I don't know. But the bottle was the caramel delight flavor, right? And on the bottle, they had a QR code to learn more information about Girl Scouts and join Girl Scouts right on the product, which is way cool. And for example, Wendy's, part of their agreement to do the Frosties was to allow girls to have booths in front of Wendy's nationally. So every time GSUSA goes in and license a product, they're also trying to get another win-win for the girl, right? Whether it's a QR code to learn more about Girl Scouts or, booths or whatever. So they've been very, very aware of that and trying to leverage that licensing of the product in things of value and as well as funds.
Yeah. And one of the
I
other things
think
that came
that's
out of the
where
national
the
research was that it not only did people actually buy more cookies, but they were then more likely to follow up about potentially having their girl join a troop. They were more likely to volunteer. They were more likely to donate money. So there were a lot of kind of other ancillary benefits to just keeping the Girl Scout name out there via these products.
Right.
I
Sorry,
think
I
this
didn't mean
is
to
where
cut
that
somebody off.
you're fine, Courtney. I think that's where the transparency needs to come in, though. I think a
Hmm.
lot of people don't understand,
Yeah.
one, what this proposal means, and
Yeah.
two, why it's a thing. Like, I think if National did I don't want to say a better job, but a more clear job of showing, where does the money go? Why do we want these things? I think that we wouldn't have these proposals coming up as often, because I don't think people understand,
Mhm.
Nationals, where they're coming from it with it. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion and the frustration comes from.
Mhm. Mhm. Don't disagree. Any other comments? Any thoughts? Y'all have been great. You've been really good. This will be helpful for people who weren't able to come and want to watch it on our website later on as well, too. Any other final thoughts? We've been about an hour and 20 minutes. You guys, any other questions, thoughts, or we'll just wrap it up and go on about our evenings.
I would
This
just
was a
like to
good
say
discussion.
thank you because the everybody's perspectives have been very helpful to me in thinking about my role as a delegate. So I appreciate all the input and feedback and also just, thinking about how we can better frame each one of these
Yes,
proposals.
excellent. Thank you, Courtney. And we will do our best as a council and we'll stay strong and we'll do everything we can for our girls. You guys are fabulous. And thank you for
so
coming.
much.
And we'll see you again soon. Thanks.
You.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.